We were suddenly told that everything was going according to plan. Everything was going according to plan. Nothing to worry about, anyway. When we got back from the Esco, we had heavy fighting at the Esco, not a casualties there. When we got back to the next position, I think we were slightly in reserve somewhere near Lille or somewhere, the message came through that the army was going to be evacuated, and we all breathed a sigh of relief, really. We didn't quite know how it was going to happen. But there again, one was so worried where the next meal's coming from, or I must change my socks and I'm hungry. You didn't think about the war very much. You had to live. It's like, as I was saying to you just now, you've still got to go to the lavatory and spend a penny and eat and sleep and smoke and all that. So the war didn't really, that had to be fitted in round your existence. You never undressed, never took your boots off. Never, from Brussels to Dunkirk, I never took my clothes off, or my boots off. And that was about 10 days. But we were very exhausted. We had to march, of course. And when we actually got back to outside Dunkirk, before we got to that, we had to march about 30 miles. And absolutely dead beat by then. You stop every 10 minutes, as you know, probably. Whatever time you start marching, you stop at 10 to the hour. So if you march for 5 minutes, you stop, because the whole army stops. You all stop at the same time. Once we stopped, all the soldiers flopped out like that on the side of the pavement, sound asleep. And you went up and down kicking them awake. By the time we got down the front, they'd gone to sleep again. And we'd lost quite a few prisoners through sheer exhaustion, no doubt about it. We marched and eventually got to Dunkirk absolutely whacked out. A place called Coxeed, Ferns, the north end of the Dunkirk perimeter, full of surrendered Belgians, white flags everywhere. So we had to go in the houses, kick them out, and tell them to take their white flag somewhere else, so we could get in there. But nothing much happened. The Germans weren't doing anything, and the French were defending as well. From my point of view at Dunkirk, there was no fighting. We had very few casualties at Dunkirk. All our casualties were before we got to Dunkirk. And then once we knew we were going home, I think I told you I was walking wounded, because I'd got a wound in the shoulder. People who'd lost their vehicles, drivers without trucks, carrier, and various people without proper jobs because they'd lost their equipment, were formed into a sort of group under my command to go first home. It had a special name for us. I can't remember. Not Lob. It doesn't matter. And we went down we were quite a long way from Dunkirk, but we had to march down, and they slept the night, and then we marched down again. And eventually got to Dunkirk, where the mole runs out. And there were whole lines of vehicles going out into the sea. You've probably seen them in pictures. And troops, when the tide came in, the troops were using these vehicles as piers. And I, with my little group of men, I wandered down to one. I said, "Who are you?" And they said, "We're the Royal Fusiliers." I said, "Can I join on?" I'm going, "Oh, no, we aren't." And this is only Royal Fusiliers. So, okay. So I went back and joined. And then we found a lot of deck chairs. And I made a circle of deck chairs, and we all plopped into these deck chairs. And I remember, again, I've written about this, that there was a fun fair that had been abandoned. A lot of the soldiers had pinched little dodgem cars and were driving up and down the promenade on these little pedal cars, all laughing and cheering. And I was in a ring of deck chairs, so it was Brighton Beach. And anyway, it was all a bit hectic, really. I'm making rather light of it, actually, because there were dead bodies around and everything was burning vehicles and burning this and that. And eventually an RAMC officer came along asking for wounded, and I was, Armin Sling was wounded, and one or two others in my little group were wounded, so I handed back to the senior sergeant, whoever it was, said, "You're in charge now, I'm off to the hospital ship." it was dark then, getting dark, and at the bottom of the mow at Dunkirk, there were a lot of dead mules. And why they were the undead Frenchmen thing, it was dark. Anyway, we stumbled, and right up the far end of the mole, there was this hospital ship lit up. Beautiful. The Germans were marvellous. I won't have anything against the Germans. You hear about the horrible SS and Auschwitz, but they were most meticulous, the Germans. This hospital ship was absolutely lovely, lit up white. All the other burning ships round about. Germans wouldn't touch it, had a red cross on, it was all right. And just as I got up there, running up this jetty thing, the thing was taking off. I can see it sort of juddering sideways like that. Anyway, a sailor pulled me on board with one hand. And this is where the sort of miracle thing, one talks about heaven and hell. And you say, oh, the hell have done. Oh, forget that. In that hospital ship, it was immaculate ward, beautiful English nurses with lovely starched cuffs, right in the middle of Dunkirk there. Beautiful, smart girls. It was lovely to lie down in a bed with a pretty QA nurse looking at your wound. Anyway, I fell asleep straight away, and I don't think I really woke up for several days.